Why do you say that, Father? You aren't afraid, are you?
No, but I respect some of the superstitions of others. Often they are founded in fact.
Broadcasting from our Sanctum Sanctorum in Venice, California, this is the Sixth Sense Society. I'm your host, Krista, here with our producer, Michael, and today we're excited to have on the show Right Worshipful Brother Philippe Milgrom, who is a member of the La France Lodge number 93, and he's going to be talking about French Masonry today and some other Masonic topics. But before we get started, Michael has a few announcements.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to our episode. Sorry we're not live today, but we've had some internet issues. There was a storm last night, and it looks like it's done a number on our internet here at the Lodge. So hopefully we'll be back live next week, and we will have Amanda Woolmer as our guest from the Feminine Macabre. So tune in for that. She's always a lot of fun. You can get all the information on our website, sixthsensesociety.com, SIXTH, all spelled out. And while you're there, if you can afford to, buy us a coffee on Ko-Fi. We definitely appreciate it. And subscribe to our newsletter and so forth. And get in touch with us, email us if you'd like to be a guest or you know someone that might be interesting. We'd love to hear about it. And just in general, click and subscribe. And that's the best thing you can do is go to YouTube and subscribe to our channel. So not going to take up any more of your time today. So I'm going to kick it back to Krista. So take it away, Krista.
Great. Thank you, Michael. And welcome to the show today, Philippe.
Thank you, Krista.
So you have quite a Masonic biography. It's going to be hard to sort of say all the things that you've done in your Masonic capacity, but I did want to mention when you were raised as a Master Mason, and that was November 30th, 1994, and that you served your first time as a Master of a Lodge. It was in 1996?
Correct.
And so tell us a little bit more about your journey to become a Mason and some of the other things that have been involved in and are still involved in Masonry.
Yes. So I I was initiated in 93 and approach in the same times for the three different and major obedience in France, like the Grand Orient, who is the oldest one, the Grande Loge de France, and the Grande Loge Nationale Française. And I choose, because I travel a lot at this time, I choose the Grande Loge Nationale Française because it's recognized everywhere in the world, especially in England. And that's the regular Masonry, and that was my choice. The reason I become Mason is pretty simple. It's you think that when you turn 40, that something is missing in your life, and that was one of the key reasons. And so I was initiated in the lodge with the name is Attar, with a Franco-Iranian lodge. Stopped the work during the time of the revolution in Iran. That was an old lodge. It's 157 numbers on the register of the Grande Loge Nationale Française. And I was initiated there, and in 3 years, I become a Master Mason. The reason that I was 2 years after Worshipful, it's in Masonry we have a godfather in France or in Europe in general, and so my godfather was the deputy Grand Master, and he said it's one day after a meeting he said, okay, I have a project for you. You need to create a lodge. I said, I just turned fellowcraft, so what I can do? Say, it's not my problem. You need to find a worshipful senior and junior warden and be a part of this. So we start the first lodge with the name was the 9 Secret Days. And that was 3 years after I was initiated, I just turned master. I was already the junior warden of the lodge. And 3 years after, I was the worshipful.
So 9 Secret Days, that is kind of an interesting name. So what does that refer to?
That's the Greek mystery. And that's an interesting story about the secret mystery of Eleusis. That's the name of the lodge. And our medal of the lodge was 3 triangle cross. So you have the 9.
Right.
And practically in a year, this lodge become very famous. And after 2 years, we have more than 400 members in the lodge.
Wow.
That was really interesting. The rite was the Scottish, what you see here, ancient and accepted Scottish rite. With a rite who exists from the beginning of the middle of the 18th century. Born in England, it's really born in Scotland. And because you have a lodge in the Scots Masons in the 1743 in England, but before you have 100 years before you have the lodge in Scotland. And so it's that was the story. And after I become worshipful from another lodge, who was the name was Universalis, and we have something particular in a Scottish rite that we can open on the Bible, the Quran, the Veda, etc., etc. And I remember when I was worshipful of Universalis, we open on 7 books, and each time that we read a sentence of the book, and it takes just for the opening, at least just for the reading, approximately 15 minutes.
Wow.
That was the first team my team of the year when I was worshipful was the Grand Initiate, like Jesus, Moses, and Mahomet, etc., etc., etc. And we have a real interesting team of the year.
So for people that are not familiar with Masonry, what you're referring to is the fact that Masonry allows for other sacred books as part of their organization, that as long as you, at least, I think there might be, is there a Masonic group that you don't even have to do that, but you believe in a divine being, that they allow you to be initiated under your own religion, and it's accepting of that, which is pretty unusual, really.
Yes. In France, we have the major obedience, who is the Grand Orient, who turned this concept in 1855. They choose to have the constitution of the Grand Orient instead of the Bible on the lodge. But for the other obedience, yes, we have this obligation, especially for the regular one, like the Grande Loge Nationale Française. We need to do that. But for us, it's we choose to have multiple. That's the Scottish Rite authorized to have multiple different book, different religion or philosophy, and we can read a part of it. In fact, the base of the lodge in the Scottish Rite is the Lodge of St. John. So we need to read first the prologue of St. John.
I didn't know that. So I also noticed in your biography, you also served in as Grand Lodge officers too at different points in your Masonic career, if you want to call it. So you've definitely, from what I can tell, been very active as a Mason. And do you feel, having been so active, do you feel it's had what kind of impact has it had on you as a person in your life?
That's a big impact, and I think it's become a Mason is just not only because you are good, you can be good for the rest of your life. You need to work on you, and that's the sense of the Scottish Rite means you need to progress every day, and this progress is you build your own temple. You know, the Mason, they build the temple of, they participate to build the temple. No matter what is the temple, was the temple of Jerusalem, but it's, but here you need to progress and be better. And Masonry helps you for that, in my point of view.
It seems from my experience of having my husband be a Mason and going to Masonic sort of activities that it seems like Masonry does have sort of a well-rounded look at how you would build a temple, in that you work inwardly, but you also work to help society.
Yes.
And it seems like they strive to do that, which I find admirable myself, instead of just, only contemplative or only doing charitable works. It seems like they strive to do both.
Yes. In fact, it's in Europe, it's more, I can say, more turned to the intellect. And in the United States, is more turned to the charitable organization and to help the society, etc. And I think I have both one leg in each continent, and that make I saw the difference, the cultural difference, the difference in general in the Masonry, but that's really interesting, and that makes the Masonry very rich, because it's the practice that you have in the United States, the practice that you have in Europe, or the practice that you have in Far East or whatever. They are all different, and but the goal is it's relative with all the different society. Here in the United States, Masonry built this country. You know, if you're going in the capital of in Washington, D.C., you can see at the entrance of the Capitol a picture of Washington, George Washington, who was make the first stone of the cornerstone of the Capitol, and he has his apron. And all around him, you have a Mason. So it's most of the people, and also it's not the only things in Washington. But if you see the design of the city, was done by Washington, but realized by the French, who are both Masons. That helps that make a sense, philosophical sense. But anyway, in the Masonry, they are different, but the goal are the same. It's to progress.
Right. Yeah, I like that a lot. It's true. Even certain lodges have a different sort of like philosophy, or they emphasize different things about Masonry. So that's why they suggest people go to a lodge first and see if it fits their personality and what they're looking for in Masonry. They have their own unique character, I guess is the word. Yeah. Now let's talk a little bit more about La France Lodge, because that is in the United States, and that was only founded fairly recently, correct?
Yes, it's my first lodge in the United States was La France 93 in Washington, D.C. I participate of the foundation with some of the Masons from France, and also from Washington, and also from California. And I remember every month we flew from Europe or from California to have the meeting in Washington, D.C. So it's that exists since 93 or practically. And we want to do the same things in California. We have 15 lodge in La France in the world, and we want to have the La France Lodge in the West Coast. And we we're gonna start, of course, to practice the same ritual that it's done in the lodge in California, the Preston Webb. But we're gonna give the exemplification of the first, second, and third degree of the ancient and accepted Scottish Rite.
And that's fairly unique to a lodge.
Yes. You have, in fact, 3 lodges in the United States, with one in New York, with La Sincérité, one in Washington, D.C., that they practice the Scottish Rite, and we're going to have the third one in La France, in Los Angeles. But of course, that's going to be an exemplification, and we hope that the Grand Lodge will accept to have also this specific rite.
So explain to people a little bit about the difference in sort of the York Rite and where that happens, and the Scottish Rite, and sort of perhaps the purpose of bringing the Scottish Rite to a little bit into the Blue Lodges.
Yeah. The Scottish Rite in the York Rite, or the Emulation Rite, because it's born first in England, means in Scotland, you can say 100 years before. But in 1717, the Grand Lodge of England instituted the Emulation Rite. And there is a difference between the brother. It takes times to have this rite. It's more based on the Bible. The Scottish Rite was born in France, and you know the French, they want to be different than the British. That's they do for a long time. They start this kind of rite, and is based on the night origin, and so all the different stage of the Scottish Rite are really based on that.
What do you mean by the night origin?
It means it's born really in Germany, like the Teutonic knights, and they have an initiation and a degree, etc. And that was the base of that. And so it's based more on the symbolism of the lodge. On the symbolism, not only on the lodge, but also from the trestle board. So we use this symbol to go to a certain reflection and intellectual reflection. The difference between the York Rite, the Emulation Rite, and the Scottish Rite is based on the Bible and the symbolism of the Bible and what is inside. The other, the Scottish Rite, is more based on this symbol of the knights and the one that you have in the lodge.
So does that have any relationship to the Knights Templar and their code? I remember I did some research on the Knights Templar, and they had like 72 codes. And it was interesting. Some of it was kind of strange and maybe particular to the time, but others was very, very noble and really difficult to follow. So does the Scottish Rite have some of that within it, that sort of chivalrous energy of developing that side of yourself?
Yes. It's more based on the tradition of the German chivalresque rite, and that's more based on that in the Knight Templar. But we have the same. It's the same idea. We're going on the same direction. For example, to be initiate, you have an old tradition with the tree travel. The tree travel is is four travel. The first one is the chamber of reflection. Means you go inside, you have different piece of the who are on the table, and from that you go in one travel. So you died with your actual condition to reborn like a Mason or something. That's the first travel. So you go inside the cavern. The second one is in the lodge that you have. So it's what I said, it's not a secret. That make the Masonry discreet and not secret. Everything was detailed in a book wrote in the 18th century with the Tyler of Vuillaume. Vuillaume was the one who write that, and he wrote from the first degree to the 33rd degree. And so the second is the air. The third is the first in the lodge. The second travel in the lodge is the water, and the third is the fire. So you have the four elements, and that's the base of the symbol of the Scottish Rite. But after that, you have more.
Right.
If you go in if you see a trestle board, and I think everybody can see a trestle board on the internet,
yes,
for the Scottish Rite, you can see there is, let me see if I'm not wrong, it's almost 40 different symbols in a trestle board. And so the work of the apprentice, but after you have the same for the second degree and the same for the third degree. The work for that is to integrate this symbol and explain and give an explanation. And I remember when I was apprentice, we are obliged to draw the trestle board after the meeting was the board was clean, so we draw the trestle board, and during the agape, after the meeting, the Worshipful asks you to explain one of the symbols that he choose.
So you don't know what's coming.
Exactly. So you need to know everything.
So what is the agape you say? Is that you say is at the end of the meeting? What is that? I haven't heard that before you came on today.
It's here you can say the dinner. It's but it's in a Scottish Rite we have a symbolism for that. The entrance, the light, even each time that you have a toast, and we have, because we are French, so we like the wine. It's the British, they have whiskey with that. So you have 10 toasts. Of course, it's a small quantity, but it's And so we have the toast to the president, the toast to the Grand Master, the toast to the Grand Officer, etc., 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 etc. And during the night, it's the agape means the apprentice, they need to serve the other brother in the lodge, and that you have for the first year of your work.
Now, since you have been in both, American lodges and European lodges, do you find there is a difference in terms of some of the commitment? Like, for instance, I know in certain British lodges, you have to attend a certain amount of meetings. You can't not attend. And here in at least California, they don't have that kind of rule. It's more lax. And I'm not saying one is better than the other, but do you have noticed these differences between at least the European lodges and American lodges, or is even by state? What has been your experience?
Yeah, in Europe, and especially in Scottish Rite, but you have that in emulation, right? in Grande Loge Nationale Française, we have practically 40 different rites or practice. The one who are more, we have the York Rite, the Preston Webb, we have the Emulation, and we have the Scottish Rite. But you have one brother who is in charge of the other. We said the Hospitalier, the Élémosinaire, different name, but is the same role. That is taking care of the brother, and is obliged on the beginning of the meeting to say why the brother is absent, if he needs help,
Sure.
etc., etc. So we have this obligation. I know that in United States this role is not exist. As far as I know, I think it's a good it's a good way to approach the relationship between brother. It's someone who has a problem cannot be outside of the Masonry because of his problem.
Right. Are they kind of like a mentor too, just helping them to
That's a
learn
big
the ropes or not?
No, that's a big difference between the French and means the European and the United States or England. In England, you have a mentor to help to learn by heart all the ritual. No matter what is your degree, you need to learn a part of it. In Scottish Rite, we read the ritual, so we don't need to have a mentor for that. The one who is in charge, for the apprentice, for example, it's the junior warden. The senior is responsible for the fellowcraft, and the master of the lodge is responsible for the other master. Mm-hmm. It's the role of the junior warden in Europe is like a coach in the American, the York Lodge. The difference is he need to help you to explain the symbolism, what is the role of in Europe, what is the role of each officer, what is the connection between the lodge and the mason, etc., etc. And also he has the responsibility because after a year, an apprentice is obliged to present a lecture with his work. So the one who is responsible to present the apprentice to the lodge is the junior warden, or for the fellowcraft is the senior warden.
So presentations are more part of European, it sounds like, in Masonry than...
Yes.
I don't know. I know that maybe some other lodges in the United States, but I don't think it's true of this lodge, that you have to have presentations to go through the first 3 degrees.
That's what we're going to do also in the La France in Los Angeles. Each of the new apprentices will practice also the Scottish Rite and work on that too, and same for the fellowcraft and same for the master. So each year you're going to have a group of lecture, and that's one of the key of this rite.
Now, my understanding, I could be wrong, is at least I thought here in the United States you had to go through the Blue Lodge before you could start the Scottish Rite. Is that correct, and is that the way it's going to work with
Yes.
La France? Is you have to do the first 3 York degrees?
Yes,
and
it's
build on it.
The Blue Lodge are everywhere is the base of the Freemasonry. In fact, the Mason in England, they said that you are perfect after the 3rd degree. They create a 4th degree. The 4th degree, they have 7 degree, which is different than you have in a chapter. And when you are a Mason from the Royal Arch with the emulation rite, He's the highest is you have the position of the Zorobabel, who is one of the 3 seats that you have, the top. And that's the top of the system in England. But you have the Blue Lodge is the base of all the masonry, no matter where is it. After, in the United States, you said the side degrees were the 4 to the 33rd. Mm-hmm. You have the same in Europe.
It sounded. I know some men get very excited about the Scottish Rite and think it's more important than the 3 original degrees. And I know from listening to my husband, he's really big on the foundation. That is a very important. And like you said, it's all you technically really need, and
Yes.
and not to just get carried away early on with just, now I have all these other degrees. And I've just heard and seen that happen a little bit.
And a big difference, but you're right. It's and your husband is right too. It's the Blue Lodge are the base of the masonry. If you don't have the knowledge from the 3 degree in the Blue Lodge, you cannot progress anywhere. The question is the time that it takes for the side degree, 4 to 33. In Europe, I know the actual Grand Master of the Grande Loge Nationale Française is the first one in the history who make the completion of the 33 degree. So it takes, to get there, takes 25 years. Here is, when I was initiate on the Scottish Rite high degree, it takes me a day to have all the degree. And the completion is 2 years.
Yeah.
So,
Kind of fast food spirituality.
yes.
It reminds me of one of the medicine men that we really admired. I think this was from either Rolling Thunder or Black Elk. It took 50 to 60 years to become a full medicine man. It took that long. And there's something to the length in terms of depth, I find. I mean, not that you have to have a specific time, but that idea. And also because I've had some training in Tibetan Buddhism, and they're slow like that too. It makes you, I think, appreciate what you're learning. And also it allows for real growth, just like plants need a certain amount of time to grow. Why would you not need that spiritually? That you need that time for things to sink in and to really accumulate, and so that's really admirable. I didn't know there was such a difference between the times in Europe and here. I knew it was a little fast here, but I didn't know it was that different in Europe. So
Yeah, but it's everywhere. I think in the Masonry, the Blue Lodge, they are the most important. And in fact, it's we can call side degree or high degree, whatever. You have the same approach, no matter if it's in Europe or in the United States or in Far East, whatever. It's you have the same approach. That's another set of knowledge. But the most important thing is the Blue Lodge, for sure.
now I know earlier we were talking before the show about some of the symbolism, and that you feel like there's some different interpretations of some of the symbolism based on, the French or European or here. And is there something you could share with us about that idea?
Yes, it's the approach. First, the basic approach means basic. That's the right word. The approach of the symbolism based on the Bible or based on the chivalresque way, it's a different approach. In a way, we have the same the same relation with the Bible or the religious book. It's not the question, but in a term of symbolism, it's really the difference is really important. It's one of the texts of first degree in the York Rite is the basic one is the text of Aaron on the barb of Aaron, etc. And so there is a symbolism on that. In Europe we work on a different symbolism, a different approach, and I think the difference is there between the two systems. But there is, and I like to be a Mason in the United States and a Mason in Europe in the same times, because we have it's rich. It's one tradition or the other. It's really enrich you.
Now, if someone joins a French lodge, do you have to be able to speak French, or is it also done in English, or how does that work?
So we're going to start in English because that's going to be a Preston Webb lodge. Means we open and we close in English, but the exemplification means demonstration to make simple. Of it's only in French, but we translate because we have the right to read. So we translate in English and we translate in Spanish.
Oh,
so like that, everybody can follow the ritual. It's. I was for 5 years secretary. I'm a member as well of a lodge who is now will turn this year 125 years with Vallée de France, who is in Glendale. And Vallée de France has a ritual, like we say is the Frankenstein ritual. Why is that? There is a part of that was a ritual who is born at that time it was the colony for France with Santo Domingo and Haiti now. This ritual, it's bring a part of the Preston Webb ritual and the Scottish Rite ritual. So we have the four travel, but in the second part of the initiation, we find a part of the American British ritual. And that was so it's, I forgot where I am.
We were talking about, doing the ritual in French, and you were explaining the English part, and then going from there.
Yeah, so it's the ritual that we have in the Vallée de France was bring here in California. The first lodge was the La Parfaite Union in San Francisco, and the Vallée de France was the second one. And so it's we have this ritual and this approach since the now 125 years. But the difference between Vallée de France and La France will be that we have the right, because we all practice the Scottish Rite, we have the right to read. So we're going to open, that was my idea.
Yeah.
Talking about. We open and we close in the Preston Webb, and we demonstrate the Scottish Rite after.
Oh, that's really interesting. I bet it's really beautiful in French, though, the ritual, I would think.
I think so. It's the good things is that everybody can follow. They can read the in English or in Spanish.
Right. So they understand what's going on.
Yes.
Now, I wanted to ask more your opinion about. I noticed that when I looked up French Masonry, there's also you have the mixed sort of co-masonry lodges, the Grand Orient, and also a women's Grand Lodge of France. And what is especially your thoughts around women in Freemasonry, whether historically or currently?
Historically, there is at the time of the 18th century, you have the starting of we say loge adoption lodge, with the lodge for the woman. After the revolution, etc., the movement go down, and reborn in the practically beginning of the 20th century, that you have an obedience who is named droit humain, who is mixed. And after that, in 1950s, you have the creation of the Grand Lodge Féminine de France, means only for women. And that's a very interesting Masonry as well. There is an history. Marie Antoinette, the wife of Louis XVI, the queen, was the grand mistress of the Lodge of Adoption. Yeah, there is an history there. There is a need for some of the Grand Lodge. They, and especially the Grand Orient recently, they have this adoption lodge in the same times. Now it's some of them, they are mixed of the lodge. That's not the case for the Grand Lodge Nationale Française, because we follow the lead of England, and in England, like in the United States, like with the regular Masonry, it's really split between men and women. In the past, I have the occasion to read some of the work of the woman in the Grand Lodge Féminine de France, and I was really impressed.
Are they pretty active now, currently?
Yes. They have 25,000 members.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, it's the Grand Mistress is elected every 3 years, like in JLNF we have the same. And yeah, it's the droit humain also. Actually, the droit humain, it's for the mixed obedience is a woman who is the Grand Mistress.
I think there might be a group here somewhere in California for that one. I think I've heard.
Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's interesting. I think women in Masonry have been around a little longer than I realized. You know, when you look at some of the history, when I've gone to listen to some of the lectures on it, and it seems like because the times have changed, it could grow even more because women's roles have changed in society.
Yeah. Yeah, it's in Europe we have this movement since the 18th century. In fact, the Masonry is born officially in 1717, but in 1740, before that, in 1723 in France, you have already a Masonry, and in fact, it's after 25 years. 1750, you have already the Lodge of Adoption.
So it seems lately there's been a little more interest from younger people to join Masonry based on some of the articles I've been seeing, and even though there can still be maybe a challenge to get people to come to lodges. What is your experience with that? Do you feel like it's sort of catching on again? I mean, all organizations kind of go through these fluctuations. How do you see it being relevant to, currently the society now compared to, of course, what it used to be, because there's so many more distractions and also other groups than there were like 200 years ago?
I think it's the young generation. They are also interested by the Freemasonry. I was initiated when I was 40, so I was not young. But and that's really fun, because more in the United States than everywhere. In Europe, it's more like you are in your 40. But here, it's that was the first time, my first experience with the American Masonry, that I found some brother who has 50 years of Masonry that I cannot imagine in Europe.
They started younger.
Yes, it started 20, 25, and they have 70, 75. And so, yeah, it's the problem here, I think, we have a real decrease in the number of the Mason in United States. You know, in the that's sad, but in the 50s, 1950s, you have 4 million in the world, 4 million, but 2 million in the United States, and now the numbers decrease, and you have half of that, and and you have the reverse in Europe.
It's increased?
Yes.
Ah.
It's not the same. You know, in France, we have, I told you that before, 100 of obedience, because it's each time you have a French, you have a president. So he wants to be there. That's we create so much obedience. But yeah, we have this experience that's going up. I think it's, yes, the young generation, if we bring something with a good food for intellect, and not only for the charitable part of it, if we bring everything in the plate, I think the people, they will be more interesting. And that's what we try to do with La France. That's the characteristic of this the Scottish Rite. It's we need to work and to with this work enrich ourselves, and that's, you know, it's like that is not just by heart. That, and if you see maybe 10 times or more the same ritual, you can feel that you are not really you don't have enough food to intellectual food means. So I think that's a way to help the Masonry to be developed. Also, it's a good things for especially for the Grand Lodge of California. They reduced the number of the brother in the lodge. You know, I remember a lodge. That's the experience that we have with the first lodge that I was Worshipful. Was in a year or two we were practically 400 members. But with 400 members, it's you cannot hear everybody, you cannot work correctly. So you need to be a small group, like 50, 60 members. That's a good number. And that's exactly what the Grand Lodge of California did.
And so to that end, in terms of being intellectually inviting, are you planning on doing like any classes with the members or talks, or have them do presentations themselves?
Yes. It's first the ritual in a Scottish Rite that oblige you, no matter what is the degree, to make a lecture every year. If you are apprentice, it's based on the trestle board. If you are fellow craft, the same on the trestle board. If you are master, is the team of the decided by the Worshipful. And yeah, we need to do that. We will do that, and we will have also every 3 or 4 months a lecture with an open lecture, not specially on the ritual, but could be on the history, philosophy, symbolism, whatever.
Mm-hmm. That's wonderful. And your group meets here at Sunset, correct?
Correct.
So if someone wanted to learn more about your particular lodge, how would they connect with you? Do you have an email? Do you have a website?
I have an email. I know that's I start in Masonry when we have telex. So it's yes, they can reach me in the lodge. For the moment, maybe it's gonna change. We have the meeting every Monday, every third Monday of the month. We're gonna have a website. We start to have the website. And this morning, I just heard that our dispensation. You have two phases in the lodge in the United States. That they give you first the dispensation, and after few months, a year, you have the charter. You need to work for a certain amount of time. And so we're going to have this dispensation on the September the 15th. So we hope that there is a lot of people who can participate. And also we're going to have the conference, the lecture every 3 or 4 months. I don't know exactly when it's going to be the next one. But I will give this lecture with Napoleon Bonaparte was or was not a Mason.
Oh, well, that'll be interesting. I'm sure a lot of people would like to know that.
Yeah, it's the first time I gave this talk was in the historical. Before I made a mistake about the historical Napoleonic Society, and I present this talk. That was a very interesting meeting and lecture, and I have a bunch of questions about Masonry at that time, and Napoleon was not, etc. And after the meeting, there is in the people who attend two grandmasters of the Grand Lodge of in the East. So I don't know that they are here. That was the occasion.
Oh wow! Wow. Well, now I'm interested to see or to hear you talk about your own personal vision of where you see Masonry growing or going, or what you would like to see, since you've been so involved in it for so many years. I would expect you to have some thoughts about that.
Yes, I hope it's it's Masonry in United States or anywhere in the world. It's a big part of the society. We have tough time, especially in Europe during the war, especially the second. But each time, but we have that before. In France, after the revolution, there is no Masonry. The Masonry reborn just before Napoleon, and of course with the help of Napoleon. And I don't tell you what is the conclusion of was or was not. And so yeah, it's. I hope that the Masonry will continue to develop, to help someone who wants to integrate the Masonry to become to help the society and to help the Masonry in general. Yeah, we have this goal, and I have a good feeling about that. I think in the United States we are on we cannot go down than what we are. We need to bring something different in the terms of ritual, in the terms of explanation. What is the Masonry? What is the goal, etc. And we're gonna be up, and I'm sure that we're gonna be back in the same numbers that we were before. In Europe, it's continued to grow, so it's not really. I'm not really worried about what's happening in Europe.
Well, it's interesting that in my business as a tarot reader, there are quite significant people that developed the tarot theory and the cards that were Masons. And I don't know if people know that. I mean, they sort of infiltrate into all parts of life. And then when you start saying, oh, that person was a Mason or that person was. And then it is also interesting how when you bring it up, people are very immediately interested in knowing more about the Masons, even if they have that misconception that they're a secret society. There's something about Masonry that people want to know more about.
Yeah.
And I think that I love the idea of like the public talks and things so that people are invited in. I know sometimes when I've opened the doors here for just public events, there have been people that have come and said, oh, I've always wanted to come into this building. And they love even the chair in the front. And there's this immediate sort of interest I find with all people.
Yes.
You know?
Yes, I think it's more that you show. In Europe, and especially in France, we know that it's not a secret society. It's you go in the library, in stores, etc. You can find a book about Masonry.
Mm-hmm.
Even the Tuileur of Milgrom who gave all the secret of secret word, sign, everything. And that's in the people. They think that Masonry is secret because it's and especially in Europe we know that about the Protocol of Zion was right in the beginning of the 20th century, and that's hurt a lot. You have the same problem here in the United States. That there is a period that all the lodge, the Grand Lodge, they closed. Mm-hmm. So it's but we need to bring something more clear, and I think for that is the Grand Lodge of California do very good things. So.
Well, I think one of the things Masonry really has going for it is tolerance, and that you can be of different backgrounds in terms of your belief system and be a Mason. And it's an unusual thing to see people of such different backgrounds. They don't even know they're different necessarily because it's not necessarily talked about. But I think that's one of the things it has that's strong, I think, in terms of really learning to be real brothers and sisters to each other. Like, what does it mean to accept somebody who is a Muslim and who is Christian, and that you actually sit down with each other. And it's not easy, I think, but I think that's one of its strengths, personally.
I think it's, it's the base of the Masonry. You're right, it's the tolerance. But it's with a little t. Means it's, you don't see someone because he's different than you. Especially in Masonry, in a lodge. Mm-hmm. So it's it's one of the key, and that's just to come back in what we discussed before in Universalism. My second lodge, I was Worshipful. We opened all the book because we believe that everybody is included in the message that you have in the book, mm-hmm. no matter if it's philosophy or religious.
Right, exactly. And I think, and then of course the idea, I think there is a renewed interest from what I can tell in the idea of the esoteric side of life, and that the young people especially come to certain lodges, it seems like they're hungry for that information, and also a path that incorporates that into the ritual.
Yes.
And I think that's another thing that could, especially like you said, the U.S. could help to bring it in forward, and lodges like Sunset Lodge and your lodge can help because you're trying to actively do that, and I think that's admirable.
Yes.
So we're pretty much out of time. I want to thank you for coming on this show, and I've learned a lot from you. As always, Masonry is such a fascinating topic to delve into, and we could certainly you can come back another time if you like. We're going to continue with some other topics around Masonry too, because I think it's also very interesting for the audience. But thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you, Krista.
And thank you all for listening. Join us next time as we continue to explore the esoteric and the obscure together. Have a great week.